Hello anybody, and welcome back to Let's Play Kirby 64, The Crystal Shards. I'm Mr. Devious, or just Deeb, and in the last episode we finished up Popstar, and today we have come back to the main menu because there's something that I want to show off. There are other things in Kirby 64 other than the main adventure, and I might show these off as we go. You can go into theater to watch some movies. There are some settings which are just, you get some different displays for your little menu at the bottom. I'm actually going to change that. And just to show you the aesthetic change. And the other thing I wanted to show off was the enemy info. In the last episode, you saw me get a couple of cards during the picnic segments, and this is what those are. If you go into these cards, they show you off the enemies, and this is really just, it's just pedo. Of course, the first card I get and look at, and it's called pedo. I'm out of here. But what these cards do is they show you the enemies throughout the game. Some of these enemies are technically spoilers because we haven't seen them yet, but they also do a cool thing where they show you what the ability of that enemy is, and also just a little, you know, animated model of them, just hanging out, having fun, having a good time. It's just cool that they have this. It's cute, it's nothing, it's collection for collection's sake, but I like that in games, and Kirby games tend to do that. And for completionists, it's fun. For others, not so much. And you may have seen mini-games, but maybe I'll show that off in a later episode. For now, we're going back into the game, back into Rockstar. We're doing the second level. Let's go, I'm Kirby. And for some reason, this first level we start off in has these really religious chimes, I gotta say. Also, that interface at the bottom, that new interface, is all like crayons and stuff. It's cute. So first things off, we're gonna get ourselves a lightning ability, and we are going to get a new ability. We're going to combine lightning with needle, and we're going to get one of my favorite abilities, and how silly it is, lightning rod. This move is just pretty great. You get no coverage from the bottom, admittedly, but when you use it, it creates like a shockwave around you that pretty much destroys anything right around you, and of course it kills anything in the air above you. So for this area, it's particularly useful. Now these pillars that are falling will be instant death if they hit you, and you let them hit you like I just did right there. That's fantastic. Well, we're gonna have to rectify that problem. First things first, we're going to get back our lightning rod ability, because I'm going to show it off, because I am going to try and show off every ability and give it its due. Usually Kirby 64 is pretty good about giving you abilities you can pair up in areas where they're useful, but Kirby 64 is also not shy about giving you pretty much all of the abilities you can hold from the get-go. So like, even in the first world of the game in Popstar, you can get pretty much any combination of abilities if you're really dedicated. Now, you see there, that's the problem with this ability, is it doesn't offer you any protection from the bottom. Especially if enemies are attacking from forward on the ground, they're fairly safe. And that's kind of cool, because that's like real lightning, in that the closer you are to the ground, the safer you are. But yeah, here it's pretty effective. And you can get pretty much any combination of abilities fairly early, but unlike other Kirby games, this is unlike other Kirby games where they tend to save a lot of the more complex power-ups for later, or they pace them out so you don't get all the power-ups until you've gone through like 3 worlds. It depends on the Kirby game, of course. This music is really quite, it's something else, isn't it? I don't know how to describe. These are Mumbies. They're kind of like most other Kirby enemies in that you can kill them fairly easily, but at the same time, I don't think you can suck up Mumbies. That's kind of their thing. And in the Kirby anime, they were actually made into kind of a big threat, a very threatening enemy. But they were called Star Destroyers, not Star Destroyers, but Star Warrior Hunters. These enemies, they hunted down people like Kirby who are Star Warriors, but I'm not going to get into anime trivia too much. I only had 1 life left when I got that one up. Eat ourselves a sandwich, and this is how we're going to get down to the thing below. The crystal shard below in this level. I've kind of noticed a trend so far as I've been going through these levels again, is that you don't start getting crystal shards until like fairly deep into the level, and that's pretty interesting, I have to say. So we got some cactuses, we got some eyeballs floating around. Also, you may have noticed from the main menu that we are 20% of the way completed through the game. So that kind of gives you an idea of how long this game is. Kirby 64 is pretty dang short. Like, Kirby games aren't that big to begin with. You can't hurt these ghosts, by the way. They aren't very big to begin with, but Kirby 64 in particular, I think one of its biggest criticisms is that it was a short game. Nowadays, I think people are getting more warmed up to the idea that just because a game is short doesn't mean it's bad. But back in the day when games were still regularly $60 no matter where you went, I could see why the value of lastability was a lot bigger of a deal than it was. Now, contrary to other Kirby games, you can actually use your powers fairly well underwater here, and I think this is the first time we have an underwater section. I think this might be one of the only Kirby games where you are able to use your powers underwater and also suck underwater. Whereas in other Kirby games, only some power-ups are useful underwater, and you can't suck, you can only blow. Ha ha ha, I know. So these things are also instant kill traps if they crush you, but you have more than a time just to run across them. And one thing I like about the Kirby games is they implement the running with a double tap of left and right. So that is to say, if you want to run, you just hit right twice and then you hold it down. And I prefer this more than the Mario method of holding down a button to run, like another button, like the Y button. I like it because it frees up your other hand to just kind of worry about its own thing. So we ride that up and we come through here and we're going to see the powers of our fourth, well, not yet. Forget I said anything, and I'm actually going to be done with this power up pretty soon. Get out of here. I've showed that off enough. Although it is very handy, it offers pretty much no protection from above. Now, if I can combine another power, if you combine fire and electricity... Oh, this one is silly. Kirby rubs a thing on his head, and he sets his head on fire with friction. I'm not sure how useful this one actually is. It takes a few seconds to get going, but it gives you a little speed boost, and as far as I'm concerned, I think it might make you invincible, but it's not particularly useful in the sense that it's kind of unpredictable when it's going to wear off. And now for this section that I kind of foreshadowed a little bit a few seconds ago, we are playing with King Dedede. This is adorable. Kirby's just riding on King Dedede's back. Simple controls here is he, attack button just swings his hammer, and that's fun. These were my favorite sections growing up, back when playing as King Dedede was such a big novelty. It's just so cute. And recently in Kirby Triple Deluxe on the 3DS, King Dedede actually is playable throughout the whole main campaign of the game once you beat it once, and that's awesome. King Dedede is just an awesome character in the Nintendo repertoire of villains, because he's not like Bowser, who's... Well, he is kind of like... His evil schemes go as far as stealing all the food in Dreamland, which admittedly is pretty evil, but he hasn't done anything greater than that scale in a long time. Usually he's actually acting in the interests of Dreamland, but he's just kind of... He's not a nice person, as we could see in the last episode in the cutscenes in there. However, the problem with playing as Dedede, as you can probably see, is he has a large window. He has a large hitbox. He has a very large hitbox, and even though he has a big hammer to protect him, it's very possible, it's very easy to die as Dedede just by getting reckless. I've died probably, not a ton as Dedede, but enough that I've seen his death animation, so to speak, and it's really cute, and he's actually one of the death animations I want to see. I know that's an awful thing to say, but it's worth seeing. It's funny. So usually, as you can see, the puzzles for Dedede sections revolve around his ability to swing his hammer, and here it's just mostly about plowing through walls. And the interesting thing about Kirby 64 is they were originally planning to have 4 playable characters in Kirby, Dedede, Waddle Dee, and Adeline, but then they scrapped that, and Kirby's the only one playable. But they managed to make them all incorporated somehow into the story, so that's cute. So we have our picnic, and we're going to try and get another one of our cards, and I think I already aimed the wrong way, so... I'll take what I can get with this green star. I'm not going to be getting all the cards in this game because it actually does take a long time, and quite frankly, it's kind of a chore. And also, once you start to get most of the cards, you get the chance of getting repeats in the cards, which makes it more annoying, even though there's no reason for it to... Actually, there might be a reason for them to do that, if in regard to spoilers, because a couple of enemies, I think, could be considered spoilers. But I digress. We fall down a sand chute, and we fall down here, and actually, I think we don't want to be here. We are going to leave, because we want to actually go back to an area that gets us stone. Now, I'm going to show this off. If you ever need a power-up, most power-ups you can get very quickly in the first area of this level 2 of Popstar. There's Bomb, there's Cutter, there's Rock, there's Fire. That's 4 power-ups out of a possible 7 right there, and it's just so handy. And the reason I'm getting Rock is, well, for something else, but actually this will be a good opportunity to show off one of my favorite power-ups in the game, which I'm not going to show off until we go where we need to go. This actually is a very nice feature of this game, is that you can go into levels, get a power-up, and then drop out real quickly, because you're going to need to do this to get through the thing. So, bombs and rocks. What do you need? How can you combine them? What kind of combination does that make? Well, you make a stick of dynamite and you get a little hard hat. What this does is... there we go. Okay, so this is a really handy ability in that it creates a wide damage area and you get to remote detonate this dynamite. Dynamite is an extremely useful ability. It has a wide range of effect, and even though it can... why isn't my B... ow! For a second I thought my B button wasn't working. Okay, so you can't remote detonate this, it just has a long period of cooldown, but if you hit enemies with it, it will explode. So there is our crystal shard, and we want to get in there. But there's a block in the way, and basically that was brown, so you needed stone to blow through it. So any ability that has a stone combination in it works. I just like to use dynamite because dynamite is awesome, and I figure if I'm going to show off a power-up combined with stone, I may as well show off an awesome one. So yeah, this attack does a wide range of damage, but you have to be very careful with it because you can very easily kill yourself. So mostly your strategy boils down to throwing the dynamite and then aiming it to hit an enemy with it, and then ducking under the dynamite. If you don't hit an enemy with it, then you kind of have the issue of, then you have to wait for it to explode, and you're kind of left waiting. So you kind of have to be careful with how you aim it. Now here, you have a choice between one of 2 little funnels to go down. You want to go down the left one. I think either way you end up fighting this mini-boss, which is just this dude, and... I don't think this does more damage, by the way. I think most attacks do a flat amount of damage, but as you can see, this is a very effective way of killing enemies. So the reason you wanted to go down the left path is that's how you get this crystal shard. If you went down the right path, you would have appeared on the other path, and this is kind of an annoying feature that the Kirby games in the Dark Matter trilogy kind of employ sometimes, is there's a lot of one-way paths that you can't possibly know are the way you're supposed to go for secrets until, like, after you played through the level. So there is memorization in 100%ing these games, and it is kind of annoying. But it's not too offensive, I gotta say. Also there's a fish flopping in the background. You cannot kill him, even if you want. But I think that's enough dynamite, because I'm going to show off a power-up I don't think we've even shown off the first stage for. This is Ice Kirby. He can blow ice all around him, and this freezes enemies, and that is a terrible antlion thing that is awful. This is, if you freeze enemies with it, they freeze over, and you can just kind of push them along, and they become a projectile with which to hit other enemies. And this is kind of necessary, because by itself, you move very slowly when you're using this power-up. However, if you combine it with blades and ice equals ice skating. This is a lot of fun. This ability is great. You move at a faster speed, of course, as you can see. You're not invincible, though, so you gotta be careful. You are invincible, though, when you do a spin. Well, not necessarily invincible if you jump into lava or something, or a big enemy, but I digress. You are very not well protected, I would say, but yeah, you're well protected. This does damage, and it pretty much kills most enemies, but it's not particularly useful against bosses, and this defines a lot of the power-ups that you use with your body, that you attack with your body, if that makes sense. Generally speaking, then, projectile attacks are better against bosses, and skates aren't very useful down here, as you can see. Well, that sucks. But yes, projectiles are better against bosses. Attacks that engulf your body are useful in areas with normal enemies because they let you kind of blaze through, usually, because they tend to let you keep your momentum, and that is nice. This area is just not very easy to go through, no matter what you do. And I do believe we swim up a little higher, and these bubbles are trying to not push us down, but the higher you swim, and it starts to rain vertebrae from above. And that's not good. You don't want to get hit by vertebrae. It's also a little bit menacing. Falls from above, and then here you want to hang a hard right to go around this spinal column and get the last crystal shard of the level, I think. Also, that is a really low quality model of ribbon, I think. But we swim out of there and we get ourselves another picnic. And we're going to go for that card because I'm going to elect to try and get as many cards as I can and not do very well at it. That's another thing about collecting all the cards. It's hard enough just to land on the dang things. But I digress. I think that'll be enough for one episode. We did 2 episodes, we showed off not 2 episodes, we did 2 levels, we showed off the cards and some new power-ups, and that's exciting. And in the next episode, we're going to be going to a very exciting level. One of the most unique ones in the game, I have to say. But until then, I'm Mr. Devious or Just Deep, and I hope to see somebody in the next one. Bye-bye!